Vancouver Canucks mount a frantic comeback to force overtime in St. Louis, but ultimately fall 4-3 to the Blues in a huge clash in the Western Conference playoff chase. Lots of storylines to come out of this one. We're breaking it all down right now on Rink Wide Vancouver. It was the St. Louis Blues 4 and the Vancouver Canucks 3 in overtime in St. Louis, Missouri. This is Rink Wide Vancouver. It's a presentation in part of Bet365, and you know this drill by now. We're going to talk about it, Irf and I. We'll break it down. Lots of talking points to come out of this one for the Vancouver Canucks and the playoff chase in the Western Conference, but we want you and your thoughts and feedback incorporated as well. Hit us up with a super chat. Our Super Chat charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. He is Irf Gafar. I'm Jeff Patterson, and the roller coaster has arrived back at the station.
Yeah.
Twists and turns for days in that third period and overtime as well. The Canucks had to get something out of this hockey game. They do. Unfortunately, the Blues get even more. The Blues get 2 points. They leapfrog past the Canucks. And for this night at least, the St. Louis Blues will reside above the playoff bar in the Western Conference as St. Louis moves in front of the Vancouver Canucks with 77 points. The Canucks have 76. Calgary with a frantic finish and a comeback win of its own in New Jersey. So the Flames up to 75 points. And as we do this live stream, Utah is in action. So a busy night around the playoff bar. But we're going to focus, Irf, on the Canucks and the Blues. Where to begin? Let's not start at the beginning. At some point, we'll double back and talk about a really slow start for the Vancouver Canucks. But Brock Boeser has emerged from his slumber. That's probably the best thing to come out of these last couple of games. Winnipeg was fun. This game wasn't a lot of fun until the third period, and then they went back and forth and traded all kinds of chances and scored a bunch of goals. And Brock Boeser gets his 200th goal in the National Hockey League, and then he gets his 201st, a buzzer beater with under 4 seconds to play, leaned into it, everything he has. We think of him as scoring with the snapshot, and we saw that earlier in the third, but this was hammer time. He knew the clock was winding down and just leaned into a slap shot and blew one past Jordan Binnington to tie the game and get it to overtime. And so the Canucks did secure a single point, but they didn't look very good in OT, and that's been a common theme all season long.
Yeah, Super Potato in the chat. I really just wanted to read that handle. That OT was tragic. It wasn't good, and you're right. And the Vancouver Canucks, Quinn Hughes looked tired at the end of the game. He was playing too many minutes, but that's the unfortunate part. When you have a guy like Quinn Hughes, he's going to be out there, and it's going to run its course at some point, and I think it did in this hockey game. But yeah, I agree with you, Jeff. The positive is Brock Boeser is kind of back. I mean, he definitely helped his team get that extra point, stole a point from the St. Louis Blues. Vintage Brock Boeser goals, but pretty quiet night from the other stars of this team when we look at it top to bottom. I thought the effort was okay in the third period, but other than that, Jeff, probably not their best game again in a game they need to have. Like, you and I were talking about this before, and people in the chat and people, on social circles saying they beat the Jets. They did it. They're back. This is a good team. You don't beat the Jets and, like you said, become the Jets. And that's kind of what people thought. These are the Vancouver Canucks. This is low-event hockey. They get scored on. They go back and forth with some teams. And then look at what happens in overtime again.
Yeah, and the track meet comes out of nowhere. I mean, it's a 1-0 game through 40 minutes, and you're thinking, are the Canucks going to get skunked in this hockey game? They had, 12 shots, I think, through 40 minutes to play. They only managed 5 shots in the third. They scored on 3 of their 5 shots. So, good shots. Traffic in front of the net. Kiefer Sherwood got the comeback started 1 minute and 11 seconds into the third. Brock Boeser 5 minutes later, and all of a sudden the Canucks are up 2-1, and you're thinking, where did this come from? But good on them. And then 25 seconds apart, the Blues strike right back, 2 quick ones to go in front 3-2. And again, then you're wondering, this team that's struggled for the most part all season long to mount comebacks, to generate offense, would they have one more in them? The answer was yes. But let's dig in on overtime because there was a lot there. Quinn Hughes with the only shot in overtime for the Canucks. And you talk about leaning on Quinn Hughes. He played 11 minutes and 31 seconds of the third period. And I get it. He's their best player. He's their heart and soul. He's their offensive driver. But it's not a strategy. It can't be a strategy every single night to just play the wheels off this guy and think that he's going to have enough, that they're going to have enough in the long run. And so he plays 11 minutes and 31 seconds in on the tying goal. But, now there's bonus hockey and you're going to need him again. And he played a bunch in overtime as well. Finishes the night with 30 minutes and 18 seconds of ice time, unless they've changed that. No, he's up over 30 minutes on the night. He had the only Canucks shot moved in with Pius Suter, and actually I think he fired it wide on that one. He had another opportunity that he'd get a shot on goal, but Justin Falk hit the post. Jordan Kyrou thought he had won it on the wraparound and came that close and needed a review, but Lankinen was able to keep it on the line, but didn't cross the line. I don't know if it felt inevitable, but overtime's about creating grade A chances, and you can't just keep giving them up and think that you're going to keep dodging bullets. And ultimately, Elias Pettersson fumbled the puck at the St. Louis line. Jake DeBrusk decides to change in that moment. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it's 2-on-1 the other way. Like, I have no idea what DeBrusk was thinking. You want more out of Elias Pettersson in terms of puck control. The Canucks did nothing, really, in overtime in terms of the few times that they possessed the puck, did nothing with it, and then they turn it over, and Braden Shen gets it to Broberg, cuts back across the grain, and puts it home for his 7th of the season, the game winner, 3:41 of overtime, and there you go. The St. Louis Blues have won 4 in a row. They are 11-2-2 in their last 15 hockey games. When the Canucks beat the Blues back in late January, start of a 3-game road trip, they were 8 points in front of St. Louis. The Blues have made that ground up and then some. Yep. St. Louis now a point in front of the Vancouver Canucks. So St. Louis really has been one of the stories in the National Hockey League since the Four Nations break. The Canucks knew that. Rick Tocchet talked about it this morning, talked about not giving up freebies, the rush attack. We saw a lot of that. St. Louis ends up out shooting the Canucks 29-18 on the night. But, mental mistakes on that overtime winner. And you can't. You can't be making the kind of change or the timing of that change on the part of Jake DeBrusk as Pettersson's fumbling with the puck and giving up a 2-on-1. Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest thing. We talk about the fumble of the puck, and Canucks were fumbling pucks all night, but in a game where all they've done for 60 minutes is dump the puck in, it's one of those times. I know overtime you want to keep the puck on your stick and things like that, but if you see it getting away from you, if you're Elias Pettersson, at least get it to the end boards, get it down the ice. And then Jake DeBrusk, I agree with you. I don't know what he was thinking on that to make the change. People in the chat clamoring, well, Elias Pettersson, we don't get to overtime unless Pettersson passes to Boeser. I get it. You made a great pass, but you want more. These are the leaders of your team. We talk about Quinn Hughes, playing so much and doing things to put his team over the top. You just got to know who you are, where you are, and what situation you're in at that point of the game. I'm going to be really curious to hear Rick Tocchet's view and thoughts on this game. I mean, he'll be delighted with the single point to get it to overtime, but again, for the first 40 minutes, this team had nothing. Nils Amon shot off the crossbar midway through the second was about it. They had a decent first shift of the hockey game. I'll give them that. They had 2 shots in the first 55 seconds of the game and had 1 more shot the rest of that first period. The shots were 12-3. After 1 period, they get out of there out of Dodge unscathed because Kevin Lankinen was terrific. Lankinen was good again in the second period. Shots were even. Canucks had some moments. I thought the first 5 minutes of the second period, they took the play to the Blues, but weren't able to mount a whole lot in the way of offense and certainly didn't score any goals. And then 5 minutes to go, second period, fairly innocent-looking play. Zach Bolduc up the working his way back to the point in control of the puck and just turns and flings it.
Yep.
And I guess it's instinct. I'm not going to sit here and carve Quinn Hughes, but don't touch that puck. Like, what's he doing putting his stick on that puck? He's not trying to deflect it to the corner. His stick gets on the way and tips it past Kevin Lankin. I think Lankin probably handles that shot. There was traffic in front, but we see that. Again, I just think it's habit and instinct, and unfortunately a bad bounce for Quinn Hughes. Most of the bounces go his way when he's on the ice, but this was not Quinn's finest night. And we talk about the workload. Obviously, that plays into it. He's not 100%. I get that. But on that Kyrou goal, or on the Holloway goal that put it to St. Louis up 3-2, and Jordan Kyrou can fly. There's a bunch of St. Louis Blues that can fly, but Kyrou down the right wing gets a step on Quinn Hughes. We could sit here all night and try and figure out what Tyler Myers was trying to do defensively on that play. Shades way over. Like, Hughes is getting beaten to the outside, but Kyrou's running out of real estate. Like, he's not going to cut in on the net. And Quinn Hughes, I think, still was okay positionally. And Myers comes way too far over, not at all mindful that Holloway's there back door, and the puck deflects off Myers to Holloway. But just a night where, and yes, Quinn gets an assist on the Boeser goal. I get that. But it wasn't a whole lot happening.
Nope.
Not nearly as much as we're used to seeing. But I think it comes back to they've just been leaning on him. He's been carrying this team all season long, and probably foolish to expect that he can do it every single night. I just thought this was one of the quieter nights of the season, unfortunately, for Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, and it's not going to get any easier for the Vancouver Canucks. Like, you have to get points in these games. The Calgary Flames winning, St. Louis obviously beating you. It's a 3-point game there. And then obviously their schedule, and it gets easier for the Blues here down the stretch, and yours gets a little bit tougher for the Vancouver Canucks. So yeah, the Canucks days off for Quinn on the road, and trying to manage his minutes a little bit, but as soon as the game's on, and if they're down, the leash is off. Like, he's playing 10, 11, maybe even 12 minutes a period now. So you're going to have to go and look at that. And I agree with you. Production was a little bit low. He gets the assist. But for that goal, for Broberg's goal to tie the game, to put them up one, Myers, he comes back and he looks at his man, Lankin can make a play on the puck. Right? Because you have that puck coming across the crease. He's probably going to poke at it a little bit. But yeah, you just have to, it's situational awareness. And I think that's one of the things that they big time lack tonight.
And I think sometimes when you're leaning heavily on a lot of guys, the workload, they've played a lot of hockey games, sometimes it is those mental mistakes.
Yep.
And it's just, the mind isn't quite as sharp as you want it to be. And I think there were some examples of that. Just looking at some of the feedback in the chat here, got a super chat from KC Shuffle. Brock is a big game hunter. No trade value is laughable. And yeah, last couple of games, good for Brock. Bumping back that value and scoring some key goals for the hockey club. Got to 20 the other night. All of a sudden, it's up to 22. So 25, not at all out of the question. We've said streaky scores in bunches. Last two games, perfect example of that. But the other point from KC Shuffle is that coaching and management has reprogrammed, traded, bench, scratched anybody with offensive spark. And I guess put me in the category of being a little surprised that the Canucks mounted the comeback they did. Good on them, credit to them. But I looked up and down that lineup after 40 minutes and just thought, who is going to be the spark plug for this hockey club tonight? And Connor Garland back in the lineup after missing the game the other night, but he's been banged up for a little while here. He doesn't look like his usual self. Again, I thought it was another night. Dakota Joshua seemed like he was a step behind. Just a brutal night in the faceoff circle for Pius Suter, who's had a very fine season for the Vancouver Canucks. So I want to temper my comments on Pius Suter, but the Tyler Tucker goal off a clean faceoff win by Braden Shen, just picks the puck cleanly there. And that came moments after Kevin Lankin then makes an incredible save off Broberg at 2-1, and you think, that's the save. That's the moment. Rick Tocchet's always talking about moments. Lankin comes across to his right, Broberg in from the left point, and a terrific save. And the next two shots wind up in the back of the net. So not a lot of response from the Canucks in that moment in terms of, picking up their goaltender after he makes a big save. But, on the night, Pius Suter goes 2-11, wins 2 of 13 faceoffs. And you can say, hey, faceoffs, whatever. But there are moments in hockey games where faceoffs matter. And in a 2-1 lead in the third period, that's a moment. And Pius Suter, if he's going to be a center, a natural center in the National Hockey League, faceoffs come with the territory, and it is not his strong suit. And this was a rough night. In fact, and this isn't the stat that stands out, just a little, it's kind of like the hors d'oeuvre. For the stat that stands out, the Vancouver Canucks got schooled in the faceoff circle. St. Louis won 31 and lost 18. So 18 faceoff wins for the Canucks. EP40 had 10 of the 18 himself. Nobody else on the Canucks won more than 2 faceoffs in this hockey game.
Yeah.
So that's a rough look. And we've said since they traded JT Miller that faceoffs were an issue. A really rough night for Teddy Bluger. He went 1-5. Pius Suter. A couple other guys stepped in, took faceoffs. Nils Oman went 2 for 2, so he didn't take, or 2 and 2. So again, just another area here where the Blues were better than the Canucks. They outshot them 29-18. They controlled much of this hockey game. Looking at the underlying numbers, the Vancouver Canucks were credited with 3 high danger chances in this hockey game. Not that the Blues had a lot, but the high dangers were 7-3, so that's more than a 2-1 margin there. Corsi 4, 50-50. In fact, the attempts were 50 for each team, so 100 attempts in this hockey game at 5-on-5, and they were truly split right down the middle. So territorially, not a huge advantage, but the advantage came in the shots on goal where the Blues outshoot the Canucks 29-18, including 3-1 in overtime. Let's get to the 3 stars of the hockey game, a presentation of Greta Bar, YVR, and the 3 stars in this game. As we look, we'll go with Philip Broberg. Not only the winner, and sometimes you just go, hey, guy scored the winner, must have been the star. Broberg, we talked about the chance that he had in the third period there. Like, he was involved, he was active from the point, trying to make things happen for this St. Louis Hockey Club. 3 shots, 5 attempts, a couple of block shots as well, and plays close to 25 minutes. So without Colton Parayko, this is part of the St. Louis story, Irf, that 4 straight wins and 11 of their last 15, and they've done half of that without their number 1 defenseman. So you talk about other guys stepping in and stepping up. Cam Fowler has been a terrific ad for the St. Louis team, but Philip Broberg, they target him in the offseason for a reason. They saw upside in this guy, and nights like tonight, worth the price that they paid for him.
Holloway was good too.
Yep.
The other guy that they paid a pretty price for as well, right? So St. Louis Blues, they made some moves and obviously bolstered their line, and those 2 guys have led the way on their crazy run that they've been on since 4 Nations. Mark, in one of our chats, Hughes played like a regular human being. He's allowed to do that a few games, FFS. Well, the thing about that is,
I thought we tempered our remarks. That, again, we're not carving Quinn Hughes here. We're carving the strategy of leaning on this guy to play 30 minutes on a nightly basis and think that that is the path to building a contender. He is a great player. And yes, he's going to be a part of what they're putting together here. But again, they need more. They got to surround him. You can't just lean on one guy. We're getting away from the 3 stars. We can come back to Quinn Hughes in a sec. Brock is the second star. 2 goals. 201 in his NHL career, so a nice milestone for him. They grabbed him the puck after the first of his 2 goals. That's a keepsake for him. And look, Jordan Kyrou leads this Blues team in scoring, and I noticed him a lot. He hit the post in the first period. Loose puck was there. Phil Hronek, I thought Lincoln was going to lean back and push it into the net himself, but Hronek was there, and then Sherwood scooped it away. But the speed is noticeable, and Jordan Kyrou, a terrific player. And look, the Blues' best players have been that. They're driving this thing. It's not just Kyrou. Robert Thomas, Buchnevich, Braden Shen had a nice night tonight. So top end of the Blues lineup, they got a little bit more than the top end of the Vancouver Canucks lineup as constructed. But there you go. Those are the 3 stars. Philip Broberg, Brock Boeser, and Jordan Kyrou. The 3 stars brought to you by Greta Bar. Another Canucks Army viewing party for an upcoming road game. We'll get you the details there as soon as we can. Plans definitely in the works. So make sure you join us and experience Greta for yourself. Big screens, not a bad seat in the house, all kinds of arcade games. You order off the terrific street food menu. They've got weekly drink specials as well. I had Mike reach out on Twitter and said, my buddy and I have gone to Greta a few times based on your recommendations and the fact that they're partners here of Rink Wide. So he says, love the pod, keep it up. And we appreciate that feedback, and I'm sure they do at Greta as well. Greta Bar, YVR, the place to be, 50 West Cordova. Greta Bar, let the games begin. As we said, this game didn't start so well for the Vancouver Canucks, and all the buildup of, the next biggest game of the season. Shots were 9-2 St. Louis midway through the first period. Canucks get a power play, and you thought, okay, maybe they can exhale here and just, get to work. And we've seen this so many times from this team. When that power play has an opportunity to dig in and be a difference maker, it's not just that it doesn't score, completely out of sorts again, and then the penalties overlapped. Was it Hronek that took the penalty for the Canucks? So only penalties of the hockey game, 2 defensemen, Justin Falk and then Phil Hronek. So each team had 1 minute and 19 seconds of power play time. No blood there. So special teams, not a factor. The bulk of this game played at 5-on-5 until they got to overtime when it was 3-on-3. But I kind of thought that was a turning point. I mean, the Canucks obviously try to get the leads in these games, did well the other night against Winnipeg. Not so much in this hockey game, and had to chip away and battle back there in the third, but just wanted to see a little bit more from that Canuck power play.
Yeah. I mean, Jonathan Lekkerimäki wasn't going to be the difference.
No.
Yeah, right? I know everyone was clamoring for him to get in and, be a guy. Why was he taken out? Well, Connor Garland was ready to play, and, obviously Niels Mann was a guy that they use in Faceoff natural centers, so that was obviously the guy that was going to come out of the lineup, but you're right. There wasn't much going on that power play. But again, it was looking at Quinn Hughes. That's all it was. Looking at Quinn Hughes, see what you can do. And they've done that far too many times this season. And they will continue. The thing is, it's not going to stop. Like, they will continue to do it because he is who he is.
Sure. No, I mean, that's who this team is for the rest of this season. But it underscores that it can't be a winning formula. That it's a team game ultimately. And he needs more. And look, Elias Pettersson now with a couple of assists, a few multi-point games here, stacking together, signs of life. Again, play on the winning goal notwithstanding. But Boeser and Pettersson, and to a lesser degree, Nils Höglander actually got a shift in overtime. But Höglander gets another assist on the first Boeser goal. But really, like among the forwards after that, I thought, we talked about Suter and his struggles. Boy, when Jake DeBrusk's going, great. But when he's not, look, we've kind of carved him for the change, but there were 63 minutes of hockey, and I just didn't think he was a factor. He had one shot on goal. It was a nice deflection of I think it was a Quinn Hughes shot.
Yep.
But they need more. He scored in Calgary. That was a week ago. They've been scoring goals as a team more than we're used to, and Jake DeBrusk hasn't been a part of that. So he still leads the hockey club in scoring, but he's got some company now breathing down his neck. And look, maybe Brock Boeser will wind up leading the Vancouver Canucks in goals when all is said and done. I suppose P.S. Suter still has a chance. He's at 20. But it's DeBrusk at 23, and then Boeser sitting on 22 now after his two-goal performance in St. Louis. Just looking for more. Looking for Jake DeBrusk just to look a little more dangerous than he certainly did in this hockey game.
Yeah, and everyone knows about Jake DeBrusk and the way that he scores goals. It's very streaky. So he gets one in, and you think that he's going to go on a run here. But I think for the most part, it's the other play, right? If you're not doing it, you're not getting yourself in front of the net. You're not putting yourself in a position to succeed. And I think that that's what we've seen a little bit is why his game has fallen off a little bit for Jake DeBrusk. But I wouldn't mind him on the power play. Like, I really wouldn't. As a net front big guy right in front, I think that's something that they can work with there.
Yeah, I mean, just to your point on Lekkerimäki, I'm with you that this game was played 5-on-5 for the most part, and a one-goal game late in the third period when you're down a goal. I don't think that he was going to see a lot of ice time there. But in saying that, Linus Karlsson, who basically took Lekkerimäki, Garland comes back in the lineup. Of course, Garland's going to play when he's ready and healthy. But it was a question then of, would Lekkerimäki stay in? No, Karlsson stays. Linus Karlsson played 10 minutes and 26 seconds of the hockey game, didn't have a shot on goal, just one hit. Looked like he got shaken up on his first shift of the third period, kind of got his knee stapled to the boards, and you could see him hobbling to the bench, but he stayed in the game. I think he only had 4 shifts in the third period. So a bit of a toss-up there. Does Lekkerimäki represent the idea of offense more than Linus Karlsson at the NHL level? Probably. But, again, in a game that goes to overtime, those guys are afterthoughts. This was your best players, and unfortunately for the Canucks, their best players just didn't make enough happen, certainly in that extra period.
Couple super chats.
I see that.
Yeah.
Should we get to those?
Yeah, we can get to those.
All right. Another one from Casey Shuffle. If Brock gets 25 this season, do you consider that a success, considering the concussion and trading away the second best player on the team? 25 after a 40-goal season, I don't know if I call that a success.
It's the expectation.
But given the extenuating circumstances that you mention, after a 12-game drought, where we were saying, like, is he going to score again? Is he going to get to 20? I guess if he could finish strong, it certainly would help his bargaining power a little bit more than if he got stuck on 19 for the season a year after scoring 40. So, outside of Quinn Hughes, it's hard to call anybody's season a success offensively.
It's true.
I mean, they are what they are, and they struggle most nights. But when you get 3 on the road, as they did, like, that had to mean something, and ultimately it did. They get a single point out of it, and so, they stay right there knocking on the door with the St. Louis Blues. They still have a game in hand on the Blues. The loss isn't great, but it's a single point as opposed to the proverbial 4-point mix here. The other super chat comes from James Hansen. Did Brock just show me the money? Again, I think recouping some of the money that was leaking there on the 12-game drought. But no, look, it's also the way you score and
moments.
Yeah, but the first goal, good purposeful wrist shot, Höglander going to the net. I like that. And then, as we said, like, put everything into the slap shot. We just don't see goals scored by forwards on slap shots like that very often. But desperation time, really no other option. And he put everything he had into it. And so it was good to see on that front. Now, a couple things here as the Canucks work their way towards the finish line. And this is the start of a 6-game road trip, as most people know. 13 games remaining. So they got 13 to go, 5 of them, as they work their way now to the New York area, the big showdown with JT Miller and the Sagging Rangers on Saturday morning, our time, 1 p.m. at Madison Square local, but 10 a.m. start here on the West Coast. The Canucks are now 5-11 in overtime, have lost twice to the Blues in OT. As close as this is, that is going to be part of the story of this Vancouver Canucks season, is their overtime and record after regulation.
Yep.
So they're 5-11 in games that have been decided in overtime. You throw in 3 shootouts. They have left 12 bonus points on the table, and that hurts now when you look at the Blues with 77 points, the Canucks with 76, Calgary 75. Like, it is literally a dead heat, and the Canucks have left 12 bonus points there. Even 3 or 4. I'm not getting greedy. I'm not saying if they had half, like if they had, 6 more wins in overtime. Forget it. I'm just 3 or 4, and they would have a little cushion there in this race. But alas, that is their lot in life. And the other part here, Irf, is they have given up points now in the last week to Calgary, to Utah, and to the St. Louis Blues. They didn't win a single season series against any of those 3 teams. They're done with the teams that they are battling with. They went 2-1-1 against Calgary, but so did Calgary. That was a saw-off in the 4 games. Utah skunked them. The Canucks got 1 point off Utah for an overtime loss, and St. Louis wins twice in overtime. Canucks with a regulation win. So you can say, hey, the Canucks got 4 points, but St. Louis won 2 of the 3 games. They didn't outright win a single season series against any of these teams. I mean, what's the surest way to make up ground when you're jockeying for position with those teams? You get the 2 points. They leave empty-handed, and that just hasn't happened enough for the Vancouver Canucks in these head-to-head matchups. Let's get to the stat that stands out, and then we're going to hear from Kiefer Sherwood, and actually that plays in well here because the stat that stands out, which is a presentation of Resurrection Spirits, with his goal tonight, and this might surprise some people, Kiefer Sherwood leads all Vancouver Canuck forwards with 26 points at 5-on-5 this season. Irf, at the outset of the season, on October the 8th, the night before the regular season opener.
Wow.
If I had said to you, list me the top 10 forwards in 5-on-5 scoring.
Kiefer Sherwood would not. You know what? I wouldn't even have believed that Kiefer Sherwood would be playing as big a role as he has
I'm with you.
on this team this season. Forget about the points and whatever. I don't think that we would be talking about him as much as we are now before the season started.
Like, it would be hilarious to go back in time, though, and just sort of, if we worked through names, obviously you'd expect Elias Pettersson and JT Miller and Brock Boeser and Jake DeBrusk and on it goes, Hoaglander and Garland.
Quinn Hughes?
Well, Quinn Hughes leads the team in 5-on-5 scoring, but among forwards. Yeah, just want to make that distinction there. But I'm not sure that I would have had Kiefer Sherwood. Based on like the Kiefer Sherwood they signed, the way that he played in the playoffs last year, shit disturber, but not a guy that was going to rack up points. And so you're right. The fact that he has done what he's done, he got his 15th goal of the season tonight. He's been terrific for the Vancouver Canucks without a doubt, but a little bit of a surprising stat that stands out, and that's why we call the segment Stat That Stands Out. It's a presentation of Resurrection Spirits and East Van Company, offering a full range of small batch distilled spirits from rye to gin to vodka, and even a ready-to-pour old-fashioned. These spirits are crafted using BC ingredients, so you are supporting local, and of course we know that is more important than ever these days. They've partnered with our friends to come up with a Sakaris and Price gin, and they've got a deal for you on it. You can use code S&P for $5 off. Check it out at resurrectionspirits.ca. You can find out about the S&P gin. You can look over their entire product line. Get that S&P gin while you can, because once the bottles are gone, they are gone. Shall we hear from the leading 5-on-5 scoring forward on the Vancouver Canucks? All right. In the wake of a disappointing 4-3 overtime loss, but a good comeback to get the single point, here's Kiefer Sherwood in St. Louis.
Frustrating one. Talk about the emotions coming out of that.
Yeah, it's a playoff game. Hell of a resiliency and character to come back. We still got to figure out our overtimes, obviously, but still looking for 60 minutes. I think when we put our foot on the gas, we show what we can do the other night against Winnipeg, but it's just not enough of it tonight. Like I said, it's a good character, grit to come back and tie it up, but we gotta be better for a full 60.
Couldn't quite see on that play with your goal. Did Jake get the tip, or what did you see on that one? What did your shot go right in?
I don't know. I mean, he did a really good job screening, so whoever got it, I don't know, but he we try to work on certain plays with their coverage, and he did a good job taking his eyes away, so I don't know who got it.
Brock also has 2 goals tonight. He hits goal 200 in his NHL career. What can you just say about him, and I mean especially how he's been performing lately? Yeah,
he's dealt with a lot of stuff this year, and he's one of our leaders in the room. 200's a lot, so he's a goal scorer, and he's shown what he can do in this league, and that's a very high character and poised play to tie it up there.
We still got 5 more games to go on this road trip, and you said 60 minutes, but what do you need to see from your group to close this out in the next 5 and on a positive note?
I think just urgency. We got to bear down here. It's every game's a playoff game here for us, and it's going to be a dogfight to the end. And we got to be urgent, detailed, and come out with something to prove, a little swagger, and a chip on our shoulder from puck drop in New York.
There you go, Kiefer Sherwood. Final night on him, the stat line at least, the goal. 15 minutes and 59 seconds of ice time, 1 shot, 4 attempts, and 10 more hits, double digits in the hit department.
He got 10?
He got to 10. It's funny, some nights it looks and feels like he got to 10. I wasn't sure that this was one of those nights, but 10 more in the collection as he extends his lead in that category in the National Hockey League, and he has been abrasive all season long. Missed those 4 games. He missed the last game in St. Louis, missed that entire road trip. And was a little worried that maybe that was a sign of some fatigue, and maybe all the hits were because it takes a toll. I mean, you're exacting vengeance on the other team, but it takes a toll, bodily contact. But he keeps doing what he's done all season long. So, another 10-hit night for Kiefer Sherwood. And I see Steven in the chat saying, should the Canucks consider extending Sherwood this summer? And, of course, they can. He signed a 2-year contract, so he'll be heading into the final year of his deal. They've got other things that are probably priorities for them. They got to sort out Brock's situation first and foremost. Pierre Suter, obviously. They got the Kevin Lankinen deal done. But, honestly, if that's something that they wanted to explore, I would have no issues with a guy that brings it every night. They're not an abrasive team overall, and so I think they can use more of what Kiefer Sherwood brings. You don't want to overpay, but this is a guy they certainly are going to get value out of him this year. If he does this again next year, they're going to get value. If you reward him with a little more security, we'll see where that one goes. But look, we see some wild ideas in the chat. Not the craziest idea that I have seen in there tonight.
Well, there's a crazy tweet on X that I saw, or tweet on X, yeah, whatever it is. Tyson Cole works with us, does some great stuff at Canucks Army. He posted about 8 hours ago. With 10 hits tonight, Kiefer Sherwood can tie his former teammate Jeremy Lauzon for the NHL record of 383 hits in a single season. Sherwood has 6 10-hit games on the season. I looked at that and I thought, no way. Like, not tonight, but obviously here we are.
Wow.
We're sitting here and we're sitting here and discussing it now.
All right. Well, good for Kiefer Sherwood. Yeah. Again, pretty short list of noticeable Vancouver Canuck forwards, and that's unfortunate. So somebody else, and look, we talk about this, and this is around the fringes, but it does make you wonder if they're going to struggle as mightily as they do in the faceoff circle. Like, what is the reluctance to bring Aatu Räty back and give him an opportunity in an area that he can contribute? He's shown it. He's shown it at the NHL level. He's shown it in the American Hockey League level. You look at Nils Åman's night, under 11 minutes of ice time, hit the crossbar. We talked about that, but otherwise, no shots on goal. That was his only attempt, and he's not. It's not like he's out there in on the forecheck, forcing and dictating play. Nils Åman sort of blends into the crowd. I think I'm ready to see the Canucks maybe look at, and again, not as a savior. I'm not saying that, but if Rick Tocchet always talks about 5 and 10% in all areas. Well, faceoffs is an area that the Canucks certainly can be 5 and 10 and 20% better. And if you've got a guy that can do the job better than the ones that are in the lineup, I think that's something that they probably ought to look at. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think I'm ready to see Aatu Räty get another look here. Again, it would probably be in a fourth line capacity, but this is a guy he's played in the NHL. It's not like you're dropping a raw rookie in at this stage of the season. This is a guy that has performed at times and has the experience. I don't think the stage would be too big for him, so we'll see if the Vancouver Canucks push on to the New York area now with the same roster, or if they look at tinkering in some way. They're running out of recalls after the trade deadline because Linus Karlsson was up on an emergency basis, but when they made the decision to sit Jonathan Lekkerimäki, that became a regular call-up for Linus Karlsson, so I think they've used 3 of 4, so that may play into it. They may want to keep one more in reserve, but look, if you run out of players, then you're always in an emergency situation, and the league has no choice at that point but to let you bring guys up from the farm. True. So, just something to keep an eye on here. Quick turnaround Friday as they travel to New York. I'm not sure if they're going to practice, but no morning skate at Madison Square with the 1 o'clock local start time. So it may take until warm-up on Saturday to know exactly what the Canucks are doing in terms of their lineup against the Rangers.
I'm with you to an extent on Räty up. I think that bringing these guys up that have clearly shown that they can play and score and do well at the American League level is one thing. But if you're going to bring them in and, like you just mentioned, have them play those third, fourth line roles, like, it's not what's the point, but if another guy can play and you're going to depend on that player more, that you trust more, that Rick Tocchet trusts more, that player's more than likely not going to be in the lineup. You and I talked about it before we did the show. Jonathan Lekkerimäki could have been in the game, but there's no chance he was on the ice with 10 minutes left or with any of that. It just wasn't going to happen. That's not Rick Tocchet's style to just throw guys in. I mean, look at Nils Höglander. He's a guy that's played well in games, and he's still just now is getting the trust of his head coach. So there's ways to go about it, but if you're bringing guys up that are offensive guys, they got to be in offensive positions.
Fair enough. A bunch of super chats tonight. This is terrific. We appreciate it. The BC Mental Health Foundation appreciates it as well. This super chat coming from Nux for Cup. Got to be careful when you say those things. It's not just their OT record. Their third periods are atrocious. And, look, the win against Calgary in Calgary last week stands alone because it's the only time that they have won a hockey game when trailing after 40 minutes. And there were moments in this one where it looked like, hey, maybe they were going to tack on another. Alas, they fall in overtime. But, they're one of the lowest scoring teams in the league in the third period. look, they set out to win every game 1-0, right? Like, that seems to be the MO of the Vancouver Canucks. The problem is when the other team opens the scoring, now all of a sudden you need 1 just to tie, and you need 2 to get ahead. Now, they got the 2 they were looking for, and you thought, okay, can they, really just grind this thing across the finish line? But it stayed 2-1 for less than 3 minutes before the Blues struck with those 2 quick ones. And then again, the Canucks were sort of swimming and looked like they were reeling a little bit. So that's why I'll give them credit for playing to the final buzzer. You have to at this time. I mean, you can't just go quietly, it's 3-2, it's not our night. They played to the final buzzer. They get the tying goal. But that's where you just wish that there was a little bit more, a few more guys stepping up in overtime to make some things happen. And that's why we said this was a disappointing overtime, just because Canucks really didn't do much with possession, didn't gain the zone, and then Blues had a bunch of chances, and eventually they were able to cash in and make it happen and win it by a score of 4-3.
We have the coach.
Well, I said I was interested.
Yeah,
I am curious to hear how Rick Tocchet frames this to get the single point, but to give up 2 against the team that started the night right there tied with you, and now you're looking up at the St. Louis Blues, who show no signs of slowing down. That's the danger here. They've got 2 more games against Nashville in the next week. They get Chicago as well. The schedule totally works in St. Louis's favor, and that's why a regulation win for the Canucks would have been huge to go 2 up with the game in hand. Now they're a point back. They still have the game in hand, but again, the Blues schedule considerably easier than the Vancouver Canucks schedule. So we'll see where things go here over the last 3.5 weeks of the season. Here's Rick Tocchet after dropping a 4-3 overtime loss in St. Louis.
It was a good fight back at the end to grab the 1 point, but what stopped you guys from getting the second tonight?
Well, I mean, certain parts of our game we liked. There was some energy, but then some pockets we just didn't have enough energy. But a great tie to get the tie, and a couple of miscues in overtime. So it was kind of a little bit of a sloppy game for us. There was good parts to it, but there was some sloppiness that we got to clean up.
2 goals from Brock Boeser tonight, and he hit 200 in his NHL career and 201 as well, and that 2.7 goal. But what have you seen from him, not just lately, but tonight as well?
Well, he's got a deadly shot. Like I said the other night after the game, he gets hot. Look out. So that's 4 goals in the last 2 games, so it's good for him.
You said some sloppiness. It was just guys standing still a little bit in overtime there.
Well, yeah. Well, we did a nice job in Calgary, and I don't know, we aborted the plan. When you don't have speed, just throw it back, get some fresh people out there, and I think we were making those short passes with nobody standing still. You gotta, and then we don't. We obviously don't. We got to get back on that 2-on-1. We don't play it right. But hey, listen, it's we got to clean it up. Got to clean that stuff up.
What was the intensity like in this game? It seemed like it was pretty high. The temperature was high.
I thought the second and third we were better. I didn't think our first was that good. I shouldn't say it, John. It wasn't bad. I just think the first period, I don't know if we didn't have our legs. Maybe that Winnipeg took a little bit of us, but once we started getting our legs, we started to come a little bit.
Lankinen was big again for you guys. Obviously made some huge saves.
Yeah, he's been big all year for us. We like I said in the first, I don't think we had much energy, and he had to keep us in.
The Brock goal with 2.7 seconds left. It kind of looked like it came from nothing, didn't it? Great play by Quinn, and then Pete found it.
Yeah, we kind of threw it out, but that's what I mean. We attacked, we went right north with it, and that's what happens.
You build off the loss?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's a point. It's a big point. It could, down the road, it could really help us. So, I'm sure we're a little dejected. But like I said, we got some pressure moments. Got to clean some things up.
There you go, Rick Tocchet. Trying to put the spin on it. I get that. It is a single point, and he's right. I mean, at the end of the year, you just add them up. You don't look at this game in particular. It's an 82-game run, and you add up your points at the end. It's a single point that, hey, maybe it will be enough at the finish line to get them into the playoffs. So we'll see what happens, but Coach trying to find the positives. Interesting, though. He talked about Brock Boeser, but didn't talk about many other individuals. Wasn't asked about a lot. That's the other thing, too, and you've heard us talk about this, and maybe the average fan doesn't care, but, biggest game of the season, and there's no local media. I mean, Murph is there as part of the broadcast, and Olivia McDonald works for the hockey club, but, again, another road trip that started. I think there may be some that are joining in the New York area, but, this game.
I wouldn't want to go to St. Louis.
Nobody wants to go to St. Louis, I guess, but the size and the stakes and everything else, and just not a whole lot there after the game. What Want to get to a couple of comments here in a moment in the chat. And again, the chat running wild tonight, and it's great. We like to be a gathering point after all of these games. We do this win or lose, and we certainly appreciate people jumping on board, and the super chat support's been great as well. So we'll get back into the live chat here in a sec. This segment brought to you by your Pacific Toyota dealers. They want to tell you about the Toyota BZ4X, 100% electric. It's backed by the peace of mind of knowing that it's a Toyota, and that spark you get when you get to pass the gas stations, knowing that, hey, you don't have to stop. It can handle any terrain. It can take you from the city to the slopes or wherever your life takes you. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get up to $6,500 off in rebates and incentives. And right now, you can finance a 2025 BZ4X from 3.29% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Claire, bringing a little heat in the chat, says Canuck fans get too high. Canucks fans got too high on Petey when he started scoring. It was just a few games. He should have been a difference maker tonight. Well, this is not a night when he had a couple of assists.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to, you would have loved him to have scored the overtime winner. There's a guy that had a 5-point night in St. Louis a couple of years ago. He scored an overtime winner racing down the left wing and snapped it home. But look, if I'm looking for guys that didn't step up and perform over the course of this hockey game, I'm not sure that Petey's on my list. I thought he was all right. Again, it was a night. There was a slow build for the Vancouver Canucks. Wasn't a whole lot going. I thought his line early in the second period actually had a shift where they were buzzing, and I thought maybe they were going to be able to open the scoring. Didn't happen there. But look, there's been an entire season here where the knives have been out, and we've all carved them.
Yeah. On
a night when he has 2 points on their 3 goals, and he's starting to record multiple point nights. Even in a loss, again, hear me when I say, yes, it would have been great if he had stepped up and won this game in overtime, but he didn't. Nobody did on the Canucks. But I didn't think he was terrible. We talked about his face-off prowess. If it wasn't for him, they don't win any face-offs in this hockey game. I don't know. I'm not sure that this is the night to totally take issue with Elias Pettersson.
No, I agree. I mean, look, the chat's going to light up Elias Pettersson, good, bad, ugly, no matter what. I think that obviously with who he is and kind of the way this season has gone for him, he's going to be a polarizing figure every single game that he steps on the ice in a Canucks uniform. So he gets a couple goals, gets onto a point streak, people think he's good, that's it. And then you get into points where you play teams that are tougher, you're in the battling for the playoffs, still gets 2 points. Yeah, like you mentioned, probably wanted him to score in overtime. Everyone would have, but he doesn't. No one else did either. And here we are. We're sitting and picking on this guy. I understand it. It's been like this all season long. But let me ask you this. I want to turn the conversation to this team as a total. 13 games left, Jeff.
Yep.
Where's your confidence level at with this group? Whether they can go on a run and maybe get into the postseason, but if they get in, this is the team. Nobody's coming to save this hockey club.
Right.
This is their roster as assembled.
Yeah, and I mean, you get excited about when you see them do what they did to Winnipeg the other night. That was fun. They were entertaining. They were up tempo. They scored off the rush, all that kind of stuff. And then for 43 minutes, that team's nowhere to be found. Looked a little bit more like that in the third period, but they were down and they had to open it up a little bit to generate some offense. I still think it's a highly flawed roster and not enough at the top end in terms of the forward group. And then I think you saw the Blues' speed and depth, Utah's speed and depth the other night. There are teams when they match up against the Canucks, you can see it. And we talked about Kyrou flying up and down the ice. Robert Thomas had his moments. Holloway ends up scoring. Braden Shen has 2 assists. The Blues have 2 top lines that have both been really good since the Four Nations face-off. When you get past that top line for the Vancouver Canucks, and it was productive with Boeser scoring a couple of goals, tough night for Garland, tough night for Dakota Joshua. We talked about a tough night for Pius Suter. You don't expect a lot from Teddy Bluger offensively, but all of a sudden he's thrust as your third-line center because Philip Hedl's not even on this road trip to start, and who knows if and when we see him again. And just when we were talking about Pettersson and his tough night, 50% Corsi, so it's a saw-off there. The Canucks outshoot the Blues 4-3 and outscore them 1-0 at 5-on-5. Elias Pettersson didn't get scored on in this hockey game at 5-on-5. Yeah, he was out there in overtime, and we talked about his turnover. Wasn't great, but Among the other forwards, shots were 6-2 for the Blues when Dakota Joshua was on the ice, 9-2 when Linus Karlsson is out there, 7-2 when Nils Åman is out there. Now, a couple of these guys have spent most of the season in the American Hockey League. They are the definition of tweeners and depth guys at crunch time. So it's foolish to expect them to be full-on difference makers, but the St. Louis Blues just looked a little bit deeper offensively than the Vancouver Canucks. So my level of confidence, it's not high, unfortunately, because we've seen this team that in these moments, in overtime, in third periods, it's been such a struggle for them. And when you say, like, this is the team outside of Filip Chytil, and again, he's not with the group to start, unfortunately for him, I think he's going to miss the game, his return to Madison Square, and that'd be highly disappointing. But now it's all about big picture with this guy. Like, can he get healthy? Can he stay healthy? And every knock that he takes, the guy with a history of head injuries, like it's a delicate situation there. So you hope for the best. Certainly for Filip Chytil, they miss him and his speed. But just go through the lineup. Like Drew O'Connor scored the other night. That was great. But we also talked the other night that this isn't a guy that you're relying on to produce a ton of offense. Got in on the forecheck a couple of times, but the shots were 9-3 in the Blues' favor. When O'Connor was out there. Like, most of the Canuck forwards got outshot badly. That's going to happen when the overall shots are 29-18 and most of the game is played at 5-on-5. So I understand the overall heat on Elias Pettersson, but I think a little misguided on a night like tonight. Claire comes back and says EP40 and Huggy both could have played better, but Huggy has an excuse, LOL. Again, we talked about the workload for Hughes is insane, but this is who the Canucks are, and their best path, like their best blueprint to get to the playoffs, is to have Quinn Hughes rise up and be the best player on the ice every single night. Is it going to happen with 13 to go?
It's a big ask.
It's a huge ask, and it's probably not going to happen. There are going to be a few more nights like this along the way. Jack says we're missing a top six center, and it really shows. So Colin, coming to PD's defense, says doesn't have to always score. He did set up 2 of the 3 goals tonight. That's what we talked about. Pato on Jesus. I watch every game. Pettersson does not drive play. You barely notice him, but lately did have a couple of nice goals and plays, but not enough to say he's back. I don't know. I mean, again, figuring in on 2 of 3 goals, like, it's hard to argue with that. People would have killed for a 2-point performance from Elias Pettersson in December and January, and then the guy has a bunch of multi-point games, and it's still not enough. And on the night, it wasn't. They lose. So I get it, but I think tonight it feels like the Canucks were exposed for what they are without Filip Chytil. There just isn't nearly enough in the way of offensive thrust. The guys that are supposed to generate to be second layers, they all had tough nights tonight. And ultimately in a 1-goal game, that came back to bite them.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people want Elias Pettersson to have Quinn Hughes nights every single night. And it's just, they're not the same hockey player. It's factual. Like, Quinn Hughes is in a tier of his own with the top of the cream of the crop of the NHL. Elias Pettersson is up there, but he's in that tier below. And I think that a lot of people just want to see it more because they have seen it last year where he did dominate games. People want that Toronto game that Elias Pettersson dominated, right? They want those type of performances, and it's just not going to happen every single night. So there are some slow, steady steps of him getting back to where he was. And yeah, two figured in on 2 of the 3 goals. I think you have to take that as a win. He made the one, obviously, egregious error, cost him the game, and that's what everyone's going to circle back and look to. But if not for getting in on those 2 goals, the Canucks aren't even in overtime.
Canuck fans probably don't want to know that Bo Horvat scored the winner in overtime for the New York Islanders. Canucks will see Bo on this road trip. They go to Madison Square against the Rangers, then to Jersey on Monday. They'll be on Long Island on Wednesday, but that's a huge win for the Islanders against Montreal. In the battle over it's wild on the East as well, or in the East, right around the playoff bar. Utah is up 2-1 on Buffalo through 40 minutes in real time here as we lay this live stream down after the Canucks lose 4-3 to the St. Louis Blues. So a little bit of scoreboard watching still going on around the National Hockey League. There are a couple of late games as well. And then it's kind of funny how it works here. There are 14 games in the NHL here on Thursday. There are 14 games again on Saturday. And in between, Irf, there's one game on Friday.
Yeah, and it stinks.
But is that where you're looking?
That's obviously where we're going. Breaking news, one hockey game tomorrow coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burnout, every face-off, hat-trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, every suspenseful minute, there's a lot of those in this game, is amazing. Whatever the moment, never ordinary at Bet365, official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app. Use code NATION to get on the game. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. We did this show on Tuesday. I hope you listened to me. Cale Makar, Toronto Maple Leafs, and Minnesota Wild to all of that to work. And it hit. So it was plus 600. This one, there's only one game, so let's swing for the fences. Why not? Frisky Friday. Rickard Rakell to score a goal. Kirill Marchenko to score a goal. And the Penguins on the money line. That's what we're going with in the one game. If we're going to swing, we're going to swing.
All right. Well, the Canucks are swinging on into Manhattan, where they'll take on the New York Rangers. Lost to the Rangers on home ice back in November. And we'll see if they can even the season series here and do themselves one better than picking up a single point for the overtime loss in St. Louis. Now, the Rangers are reeling. They fell 4-3 at home to Toronto tonight. They have 2 wins in their last 9, and they are sinking in a hurry. Brutal the other night in a 2-1 loss to the Calgary Flames, and they've played more hockey than everybody. That's probably the thing that's now working against them the most, running out of daylight. JT Miller has 7 goals and 18 points in 20 games since the trade, but he's kind of gone quiet here over the last couple of weeks, so we'll see if he's fired up to go against Elias Pettersson and his former teammates on Saturday. Rangers are a funny bunch. I mean, we know that it's come off the rails for them. They have revamped that roster a few times through the season. The Jacob Trouba trade, Capo Caco for Will Borgen just before Christmas. Obviously, the Miller deal sent Ryan Lindgren and Riley Smith away at the deadline as well. So lots of moving parts there for the New York Rangers. Artemi Panarin, he scored tonight. He leads them with 74 points. Their next highest point getter is Adam Fox, the defenseman, with 49.
It's crazy.
Like, their forward group stinks.
Yep.
Vincent Trocheck, second on the team with 20 goals. How about this? Chris Kreider scored tonight. He's got 19 goals. He has 4 assists. He's the only guy in the National Hockey League with more than 20 points who has fewer than 5 assists. Like, it's a crazy he's in a league of his own. He'll score 20 on the year, but he may not get another assist. Who knows? 19 goals and 4 assists. And Igor Shesterkin, I mean, he's been one of the busiest goalies in the league. It kind of feels like he's due for a day off. The Canucks may see Jonathan Quick on Saturday. We'll see. But the Rangers started the day a point behind Montreal for the final wildcard spot. This was their 70th game. They get nothing. Montreal gets a single point, and the Islanders, as we mentioned, they got 2 for that overtime win. So lots of moving parts in the East and moving parts in the West as well. A night of sort of mood swings, emotion swings for the Vancouver Canucks. Brutal start to the hockey game, but they hung with it. Kevin Lankinen was good through the first 40 minutes. A bit of a bad bounce to get past him on the opening goal of the night, and then the Canucks showed some signs of life. And that's what you like about the Vancouver Canucks, but this team that has built itself on, low event, low offense, but defend, did well to grab a 2-1 lead, and then in the blink of an eye, it was gone. And I think that was a little bit of a surprise, just how quickly they let the lead get away, but played to the death, as they say, and got the goal that they were looking for. So good to see Brock Boeser showing some signs of life here over the last couple. If the Canucks are going to get to the playoffs, obviously they're going to need Brock Boeser scoring on the regular. They're going to need Elias Pettersson continuing to put up points, but then they're going to need others. And P.S. Suter's had a nice season and has been productive of late. Again, he had a tough night. Jake DeBrusk had a tough night. And as we said, Quinn Hughes just not quite at the level that we're accustomed to seeing him in terms of dictating the way the game's played and ultimately the outcome. But when you're asking him to play 30 minutes and 18 seconds and more than 11 and a half minutes in the third period, you can understand why this guy just can't carry the weight of the world on his shoulders night after night after night after night for the Vancouver Canucks. So the road trip starts with a loss. It's funny, when you look at the Canucks' road record, 17-12-5, and still looks pretty good on paper. But they got so far out in front of the curve early on. Remember, Lankinen won his first 10 road starts and virtually unbeatable away from home in the early going. You think about the road trip right out of the Four Nations break where they lost 4 of 5. Yeah, they got a good win in Calgary, but now they start this road trip with a loss as well. So not nearly as mighty on the road lately as they were earlier in the season. But again, that road record, one of the reasons that they are in the mix at all. So they got another chance on Saturday morning, and that's when we'll be back with our next episode of Rink Wide Vancouver, 1 o'clock local time in New York, 10 a.m.,
Early.
Yeah, but again, I know what my social feed's going to show. I got to set an alarm. It's 10 o'clock. They're not asking you to get up at 6. It's 10 o'clock. I know it's a weekend, but anyways, pet peeve when I see that come across my feed. Speaking of feeds, if you're watching the live stream, you see all of our social channels, hopefully by now, that you have followed us. Certainly Canucks Army with all the content that's been pumped out there. You don't want to miss any of it. So all of the different social options for you. Make sure that you give us a follow. And as far as Rink Wide goes on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, rate and review, leave us some feedback. Let us know where you are enjoying Rink Wide Vancouver. We put out a call here late in the program. We do Rink Wide Worldwide every so often, but always fun to see where Canuck fans are dotted throughout this world. It's spring break, so people maybe getting away from home, but still checking in and keeping tabs on the hockey club through Rink Wide. So drop us a note in the live chat as well. Where are you and what time was opening Faceoff for you as you watch the Vancouver Canucks and the St. Louis Blues? Atsu is at the controls tonight. We appreciate his help. Getting us up and running here and keeping us on the stream. You're back with me on Saturday.
Yes, sir. For brunch.
Right. Yeah, so you work daylight Saturday games. It's those night ones when you have other options. All right, so we'll do it again, and we'll see what Saturday brings. Obviously, the storyline is pretty simple with the Canucks facing JT Miller and the New York Rangers, two desperate teams, and we'll see if they look the part when they face off on Saturday. So that's going to do it for us. Unfortunate end result for the Vancouver Canucks after doing well to get the game to overtime, but they can't get the winner. The Blues do. 4-3 is the final. 4-3. St. Louis in overtime. The Blues move past the Vancouver Canucks, ahead of them by a single point in this wild card race in the Western Conference. For IRF, I'm Jeff. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Rink Wide Vancouver.